His passion for music is obvious. His forte, the alto saxophone. He has been performing and teaching in and around Orangeville in the GTA now for 10 years. Along with his music, he is a clinician. His name is Ryan Grist. For the past 8 years, Ryan has run the Orangeville District Secondary School's jazz band. Not only is he a performer in the Orangeville Jazz and Blues Festival, but recently sat on the board of directors for the festival. Ryan also works closely with the Kincardine Summer Music Festival for youth. Join me, Melissa Morris, as I talk one-on-one with Ryan Grist, right after this break. Hi, and welcome to this edition of One-on-One. I'm your host, Melissa Morris, and joining us today is alto saxophonist and teacher Ryan Grist. Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
For 10 years now, you've been performing and teaching around the Orangeville area, around the GTA. Going back to your childhood, did you grow up in a musical family? Is it kind of in your blood?
It is in my blood. My great uncle was, he was a great musician, piano player and vibraphonist. And he played, he was in Ottawa on Parliament Hill. He used to coordinate events and stuff like that. So the Queen would come over and he'd be in charge of the music. He was also in charge of security, which is kind of weird. But, you know, musicians and also security, I know a guy, you know. So he did that for years. And my grandfather played bass in swing bands. He played with my great uncle, as also cousins and friends of the family that But my first experience, and when I sort of got bitten by the jazz bug, was sitting in my grandparents' living room, and my mom and my uncle had to go down and physically carry the bass up and put it in my grandfather's arms and say, you know, play it, because a friend was there who he used to play with, and he was playing the organ. Yeah. And they just started playing, and I remember just sitting there. There's actually a picture of me sitting there. I guess I'm like 12 or something. I've got a mullet and buck teeth, and I'm sitting there, and the look of awe on my face is incredible. And it's kind of neat that picture, that moment is like, that's when my first experience with jazz and improvised music, and I thought, whoa, this is so cool.
And were you playing an instrument at that point? Did you play anything?
No, I wasn't playing, other than my grandpa showed me a few little things on the piano, like the knuckle roll. Other than that, I hadn't really done anything yet. It was shortly after that I started playing piano, taking piano lessons. And I took those for a few years. I wasn't really into it. I mean, I enjoyed it, but I didn't really jump on it. When I went to grade 9 and they put a saxophone in my hands, and I thought, forget the piano, man, this is really cool. Like,
yeah. Well, speaking of school, you're a graduate of the Humber College Jazz and Commercial Music program, majoring in performance. How did you, I guess, choose that institution? Was it a place that you kind of always wanted to go? It's so well respected.
Yeah, Humber College has probably one of the best programs. I mean, I'm a little biased. I'd say it's the best program around. And that's just because of the faculty. The faculty is incredible, especially for saxophone. Pat LaBarbera's there. Pat LaBarbera's played for years in the Buddy Rich Orchestra. A name that a lot of people know is John Coltrane in the jazz. Well, John Coltrane's classic quartet had a drummer named Elvin Jones. And Elvin Jones put a band together called the Jazz Machine, and he called Pat LaBarbera. So it kind of gives you an idea of, like, Pat LaBarbera, you can't beat him anywhere. Like, he's internationally
Well,
renowned.
and I can imagine a school of that stature with that kind of faculty. It's kind of stressful applying to a place like that. Did you sort of have that sense of competition? Was it a competitive or a stressful situation trying to get in there? Did you have to audition? Or?
Yep, you have to audition. It's funny because it's, coming from Orangeville, Little Pond, and then, I was the best saxophone player in the high school, which is, so what? But anyway, I get down to Humber College, and you walk into the audition thing, and I'm prepared, right? Like, I've been practicing more than I've ever practiced, and you're listening to these other guys audition, and you're going, holy, are those the graduates? Are those the guys applying? Like, that was pretty wild. And I didn't get in. I got in. I was put on a waiting list. And I guess some of the other guys had scholarships and elsewhere or whatever. And so I didn't just walk in there. It was,
really?
I got in by the skin of my teeth, yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding. Well, there are many types of saxophones. What distinguishes the alto saxophone from the others?
Well, it's way better than all the others.
Not that that's biased at all.
No, all the saxophones are great. There's four. Well, there's plenty of different ones, but the basic four are the soprano, which is, I hate to use the reference for Kenny G, but that's, everybody knows Kenny G, and that's the straight one, kind of looks like a brass clarinet. That's the soprano. The next down the line is the alto, which I play, and then there's the tenor saxophone, which is probably in the jazz world is sort of like Coleman Hawkins, Ben Webster, all these guys, Lester Young, they all played tenor, and it was one of the instruments that sort of made jazz, like they were made for each other. And then baritone saxophone, which is the, it's big.
Yeah.
You got to be pretty strong to hold it up.
Do you remember your first performance? Do you remember where it was or how you felt after that?
First performance. I recall the first performance that I actually thought, like, wow, like I really nailed that. It was just I think it was a Christmas concert at ODSS in Orangeville, and we were playing "What Child Is This?"
Yeah.
And I had a solo. It wasn't that long, but I remember playing it, and feeling really good about it afterwards. Where there was a little more applause than I was used to, and then you started getting like compliments, and so you felt like you were connecting with people, and that was sort of the first time that it was like, wow, this is really neat. Yeah.
Well, we are going to continue to connect with you. We're going to talk to you a lot more. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with this local musician, Ryan Grist, when we come back on One on One. Welcome back to One on One. Today joining us is alto saxophonist and teacher Ryan Grist, and we're talking about your career and about how you came up as a child in this really musical family. But in terms of your own career, what do you think your big break was?
It's probably more recently than anything else. The Kincardine camp really helped a lot with confidence and getting around some of the best players in Canada, and that sort of gave me the idea that, hey, I could maybe play with these guys, like maybe I could play at this level, because everything else before that was usually just like the odd wedding or a corporate gig or jobbing gigs where you're just playing in a restaurant and playing tunes.
Tell us a little bit about what that camp is, what it's all about, kind of the magnitude of what that camp means to a jazz performer.
It's an amazing little camp. The price of it is great for people that are interested in going. It's incredibly cheap. for what you get. And on faculty are some of Canada's best musicians, period. And these guys are renowned over the world as well. Lauren Lofsky's on guitar, Pat Collins on bass, Mike Malone on trumpet, Dave McMurdo on trombone. Dave McMurdo Jazz Orchestra has been playing jazz festivals and stuff for years, and he's got the best players in his band. Brian Dickinson on piano, and Barry Elms on drums. It's amazing, and every year they bring in a guest artist. So the first year I was there, they had Mike Murley in. Mike Murley just won the Jazz Saxophonist of the Year National Jazz Award, and he's won Junos. And they brought in, after him, it was Jerry Bergonzi, who is like Superman as far as saxophone goes. He's kind of like the guy, if you asked anybody. And so I'm shopping with Jerry Bergonzi. We're in Sobeys, and he's going, "Where's the soy milk?"
That must be kind of surreal.
It's very surreal.
Yeah, because all of a sudden these people you've admired, you all of a sudden have this one-on-one relationship with.
Yep.
How does that, in terms of your own, not just career, but your own passion, how does that inspire you?
That has been invaluable because you get to talk to people and find out what their influences are outside of music. Like, you can talk to somebody and they can say, "Oh yeah, I listen to this record or that record, or I like this guy," or blah, blah, blah. But when you can talk to somebody and say, you know, like somebody's, you know, like he's got a kid and he's talking about his kid, and is just like, it really brings them back down to earth, because I've been listening to their CDs, reading the liner notes, listening to this guy and going, "Oh man, like what makes this guy tick?" And then you get a chance to ask him. It's amazing.
Well, and you're not only a performer, but you're also a teacher of performance, and you've been running the Orangeville District Secondary School's jazz band. Why do you think it was important to start up a band like that?
Well, I didn't start it. I played in that band, and I left for a year and went to college, and I got a call from Doug McElwain, the music director, and he said, "The guy that's running the band, he's not going to be here, and we don't have anybody else to run the band. Hint, hint, do you know anybody that might be interested?" And I sort of thought, well, okay, I've never conducted a band, but I had a pretty good idea of what swing was. So I thought, okay, well, I'll give it a crack. And it's been 10 years. So that's been a great experience. Working with the kids has been absolutely amazing.
How do you feel about them sort of seeing you as a role model?
Well, I don't know. I don't mind it. It holds me to a higher standard, I think, because you know, there's a lot of if you're going to start a career in music, it's not going to be, you know, all nicey and everything's going to be handed to you. You're going to have to hustle, and they definitely see me hustling. So, you know, they need to know that, and so.
Yeah, well, we're going to find out a lot more about your career and also about Ryan's life in Orangeville when we come back on One on One. Welcome back to One on One, where today we are joined by our guest, Ryan Grist, who's an alto saxophonist and teacher. And we were talking a little bit about festivals and camps and different things you've been involved with. You've been a musician as part of the festival, the Orangeville Blues and Jazz Festival, but recently you were invited to sit on the board of directors. Tell us a little bit about the festival and what it means to you as a musician.
It's fantastic as a musician to be a part of it, because you get international acts coming through town. You get to see big city jazz in Orangeville. You don't have to go anywhere. Usually you have to drive down to Toronto, pay for parking, blah, blah, do all this stuff. It's right in your backyard, so it's great that way. Being a part of the board of directors was just an honor. I think it started because Larry Kurtz, the founder of the festival, he's a big blues guy, and he's got a great ear for the blues and what's going on in the blues community. And I think maybe I think it started out that maybe he wanted somebody that had more of a jazz connection, but I don't think it's the case anymore. He's pretty on it as far as music in Canada goes. But it's been a pleasure to be to be a part of it.
What would you say your performance style is? Do you think you have one? Do you think it's casual, or do you think it's, do you tend to talk a lot during your shows, or?
No, I tend to try to go right into the playing and get to what I love to do. Talking about it is on stage is something that I'm still perfecting, because I've put my foot in my mouth a few times, and you just start talking about something, and people aren't really tracking with you, and you know what you're trying to say, but it's not coming out. So it's like, okay, we're going to play now, and I feel better with the horn in my mouth.
Right. Well, do you prefer playing solo or with a band?
No, I usually have a band with me, definitely. Playing solo, I just did a benefit concert for the Choices Youth Shelter in Orangeville, and I played solo for the first time to an audience, like a big audience. Wow. And it was neat. It was neat because I could do whatever, but if I was going to do it, I couldn't play solo for an hour or something like that. At least I couldn't yet. People get bored pretty quick, I think. You need the bass and drums and
to kind of sort of round it out almost.
Yeah, you need the whole feel.
Yeah. Well, you are also multi-talented. You're not only a musician, but you're also a self-employed carpenter and a clinician. How did you get involved in all these professions?
Carpentry was something I just grew up with. My dad was always handy, and I was always helping him out. And I got a job really early working with a friend of the family, building hot tubs and decks. And then that just sort of, one thing led to another, and I just sort of developed it as I went. Yeah. It's sort of something to feed my jazz habit, you know. Yeah. But and as a clinician, I was sort of natural after being involved with the jazz band. I found that I could talk to the kids, and I looked young, so they seemed to relate to me a little better than maybe some old gray-haired dude saying, "Oh, you can't. No, that doesn't swing." But it was sort of just a natural thing. Yeah.
Has your family been a big support to you? How have they sort of pushed you through this career?
They've been great. Probably the biggest thing is that they let me practice, because some of the stuff I practice can be pretty obnoxious. Really? So so I was always allowed to practice, which was great. My dad always had music on, so he turned me on to Sinatra, and that was. I mean, anybody that appreciates a lyric or a good song, I mean, you gotta be listening to Sinatra.
So we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to find out what life is like in Orangeville for Ryan right here on One on One. Where today our guest is alto saxophonist and teacher Ryan Grist. Thanks very much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Tell us a little bit about some of your musical influences. Obviously, you've been surrounded by incredible musicians with your family and with teachers, and who really inspires you as a musician?
There's a couple of guys in New York right now that I love listening to. One is Kenny Garrett, just incredible. Another saxophone player is Joe Lovano. Those are two guys that I really love their playing and listen to a lot. Vocalists have always been, I mentioned before, Sinatra. Love Sinatra. Love the tunes he sang. Love the whole Sinatra thing. I'm still trying to find a hat that'll look as good on me that it does on him, but I've got a weird shaped head, so it's hard. And but I like a lot of the new guys too, like Michael Bublé. There's another jazz vocalist, Canadian guy, is Denzel St. Clair. He's a great singer, great guy. And in Toronto, there's just a multitude of guys. Alex Dean, who is a saxophone, I'm his sidekick at Kincardine, and he's been an absolute inspiration. Just watching the way he performs, he sort of goes for broke, no holds barred all the time, full out. Just a passionate player, and he's for the music, and he's got a great family life, and he's busy, and he's just loving what he's doing, and he's been great. He's helped me a lot.
How do you find living here and living in the country? Do you find that's an inspiration to you?
Well, Orangeville's not quite the country anymore. It's really starting to grow. The indication with the festival, like we had 18,000 people through this year at the Blues and Jazz Festival. You know, it's really starting to get big. It is a little bit isolated from, you know, I've got to drive to Toronto to check out any of the music that's coming through, which I don't mind so much because I grew up, spent a lot of time in Orangeville, and I love Orangeville.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and of course, you're traveling all around the world, you know, with your music. But coming back to Orangeville, is there something special here with the crowds when you're playing in front of a crowd here in Orangeville? Does it feel a little bit different for you, sort of like coming home?
Yeah. It's always nice to play for a hometown crowd, and there's just more of a connection, and you get to see people that you maybe haven't seen in a while, and people stop you on the street and say, "Oh wow, you know, I really enjoyed your performance," or "I really hated that performance that you did last year."
People don't say that, do they?
Oh sure, people will say anything. I don't get that frequently, but it has happened.
Yeah, wow. And where do you see your career going from here?
Well, recording is something that I really want to do, but it's an expensive process to do it right. And to do it so that everybody is, you know, you're not calling in favors and can you play for free and blah, blah, blah. You want to make sure that everybody's really engaged in the project and they're being paid what they're worth, because musicians, you know, a lot of times don't get paid what they're worth. So these guys, you know, a lot of my friends and I really would like to put together a project that I can be proud of and be able to promote and have something that is going to stand sort of the test of time. So in 20 years I can look back and say, this is good. Yeah. It's still good. Excellent. It's not something I just sort of threw together just for the sake of having a CD that I could sell to somebody.
Right. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today, Ryan. It's been a pleasure having you here, and we're looking forward to hearing you play right now. If you could play us out, that would be great.
Sure.
And make sure you join us next time. On Rogers Television, I'm Melissa Morris.
One-on-One was taped on location at the Consulate Dining Lounge, located within the Royal Ambassador Event Center, situated on Innes Lake Road in Caledon.